again, everybody. Today we are with Pamela Edwards. So Pamela, how are you this morning?
You know, I'm just wonderful and so happy to be part of your Happy Home show.
Perfect. Well, we're delighted to have you. And I can see a nice cozy background there. Ooh, looks very relaxing. So this is
a virtual room.
Exactly. In fact, Pamela is an expert in Feng Shui, and you are going to talk to us today about the mastery of Feng Shui practice. Now, for a lot of us who maybe don't know much about Feng Shui, could you just start by telling us a bit about yourself, how you got to Feng Shui, and what is Feng Shui?
Okay, well, I originally have a background in design and I had design related businesses, and I came to this point in my life where it was just time to make a change. And someone mentioned feng shui and I had no idea what it was, but it just intrigued me and it seemed like that would be something I'd like to know about. And so I signed up for a class. Class was being offered at UCLA in Los Angeles. And well, I got to the class and I went home that night and I read the whole book. And I don't think I could stop smiling for a whole year, because it's just like you just found your life purpose, almost like it's just like, this is my journey, you know, and just one thing led to another. And I was really privileged then to meet a teacher, really a revered master who took me in as a mentorship that lasted for 10 years. So I was part of a very small, you know, inclusive group of people that we spent time over those 10 years. We traveled the world looking at cities and countries, evaluating businesses, looking at land development. So I was like totally immersed into the world of metaphysics, of course, which feng shui is a big portion of what that is. So I learned about feng shui, face reading, Chinese astrology, how to build buildings with feng shui in mind. So it was quite an adventure. And that came to an end. And then since then, I've continued to study with other teachers, because metaphysics is a vast world and you never stop learning, unfortunately. And so during that time, I created my own business, Language of Space, where I use feng shui applications for people in business, in their homes, helping people design buildings, because I have a background in spatial design. And also I mentor people to help them understand more about themselves through their Chinese astrology charts.
Well, then that's several things. So I'm going to have to ask you, what exactly is Feng Shui?
That's always the leading question. And it's such a it's such a vast thing, but really, I learned classical feng shui, and classical feng shui is really a science built around a body of knowledge that has been researched and just, you know, and really discovered for over thousands of years by masters, by sages, and with the aim to really create harmony between nature, the built environment, and people. So it's that interconnectedness that's really so important. So metaphysics, which is the science of feng shui, is about interpreting those energies and seeing how we can utilize those energies within our own environment. It's like how the external environment can feed that energy into our internal environment, and how we can use it to grow, to create harmony in our own life, to help us to address the issues that are coming up in our life so that we have the courage to face them. Wow. Because where you're positioned in your home has a lot to do with how that energy supports you.
Okay. So
that helps a lot.
well, it definitely helps as far as we understand that it is definitely the relationship between the outside, the buildings, and the inside, and also the inside of ourselves. And so, as we were saying in our show, it's important to try and understand what we are in order to create a space where we feel well. So, how does Feng Shui help us in understanding what we are?
Well, Feng Shui is based on the five elements, which is a whole language in itself, and the principles of yin and yang. And we have all those components within ourselves because we have, based on Chinese astrology, we are comprised of the five elements also. And at the same time, the five elements are in nature. The five elements are actually show up in our homes based on each sector or location in your house refers to an element. So we look at all these different elements and how they are in balance, out of balance, how they support us energetically based on our astrology, where we are best positioned to be in our home to support us. The number one thing really, Feng Shui is really about people, understanding people and how we can support them in what their objectives are. So we take a look at the influences, and sometimes those influences are very subtle, but being trained to see that, I can go into a space and I can pretty much almost immediately tell where the issues are within the household and begin to address them to help them to, because we have blind spots. And so it's helping people to see what they don't realize that's sometimes so obvious about themselves.
So, for example, what would you have a look at? What do you, when you walk into a space, what are the things which you look for?
I look for where the energy is not moving, where there is there's like a dead corner, or there's a lot of there can be confusion by how that space is laid out. A lot of people have clutter in their spaces, and seeing how we can then change that space so that it can actually really, how there can be an energy flow. A lot of times there's obstacles in the way once you enter the door that actually inhibit how the energy flows through the space. So it's how we can get that energy to move. Just think of like a wandering stream. That's how you want the energy to move through your space. So where are the blockages that are happening, and how can we make a change to then help people feel better about their space? And of course, it's looking at key things: your bedroom, the kitchen, especially where the stove is located, and where your workspace is, to see how they are resonating with you energetically.
Oh, okay. And what would you describe as, when you say to make sure that the energy flows? So can it get stuck, is what I'm saying. And is the energy always a positive energy? How do you know whether it's a positive and negative energy? Or
well, that's the science that I interpret to understand. And at the same time, there may be furniture that actually is inhibiting the flow of how the energy moves, and so that's why a lot of times it's repositioning things in your house. But also it's about understanding where the energy points are there in your house. Just like I Ching has, it's comprised of the 64 hexagrams. And within your house, actually, they have a location. So I also go in and activate specific locations that are in alignment with the people based on the I Ching, which is another form of metaphysics also.
okay, so can you expand a little bit on this I Ching? Otherwise, I can't follow you from your.
Well, I Ching, there's a book of changes, and it's really based on the five elements, because it's based on each element has what we call a trigram. And there's two, when you put two trigrams together, because there are 8 different elements, and when you put 2 together, then you get 64 different elements. And so each of those, based on a compass, have a specific location on the compass. And when you overlay a compass onto a house, you get to see the roadmap of that house and where everything is positioned within the house. Because the house, to begin with, we take a reading of the house to see the orientation of the house, which then puts everything into perspective of where it is in position, where the northwest is, where the southwest is, where the east, the west, the southwest, where all the different locations are. And so it begins to paint a picture of what's happening in your house, especially if you're missing an area of your house, because a lot of houses are not square. They're rectangulars, they're L-shaped. And we can see if you have a missing location in your house, which family member that's representing, and where are potentially the difficulties with that person and how we can then compensate for that.
Oh,
Gives you a little bit of an idea what's going on with Feng Shui.
yeah, well, tell me, when if I were to call a feng shui, at what point in my journey, when I buy a house, when I want to redo a house, once I've painted it, is it just to move my furniture?
When you have the thought of wanting to purchase a home, that's when you call me, because I can help you to find the house that's best suited for you.
Oh,
Versus
okay.
waiting till you've just moved in and ring me up and say, hi, come, I wanted you to take a look at my house and tell me what I need to do. But if we can back step that a little bit and find that house that's really ideal from you from the start, then it makes both the job easier for me and also for yourselves to accomplish what you'd like to achieve. So that's one thing. Of course, when you're selling a house, timing is also a very important thing in Feng Shui. So when you're going to list your house, I give them a good date and time energetically. So that helps to create the attraction. And I've had very good results with that with clients. Another reason people hire a Feng Shui person is they find that things are just not going right in their life. They're uncomfortable, they're out of sorts. Maybe it has to do with instability with finances or challenges with their career, relationship issues, or they'd like to find a partner. And then, of course, what's really important is wellness, our state of mind, our physical health, feeding our soul. All these are very important factors. And so I help people go down this journey where it helps them to uncover what the obstacles are and to find out more about who they are so that they can actually be a more self-determinate person in choosing what decisions, where they want to go.
So this, from what I understand, is that Feng Shui is not only, you don't only call Feng Shui to solve the issues of the house. You call a person of Feng Shui to solve the equilibrium within oneself as well.
Very much so.
Okay.
This house just represents, it tells a story about what's going on in people's lives. And so it represents the challenges, the opportunities. And a lot of times when people are ready to make a shift or make a change in their life, they begin feeling uncomfortable. And so we take a look at how we can change the energy of your space. And even sometimes it may be an opportune time to move, to find something that's better suited for you.
So, but I just want to understand better. So if I call a Feng Shui for the house, because I want to feel the energy in the house, you operate in a certain manner and you help them, as you say, move the energy. But if I call a Feng Shui person, consultant like yourself, because I know I am not in alignment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
How do you operate?
First thing I do is I look at your astrology chart, because that will tell me the strengths and weaknesses within your chart. And then when we look at the energy that is present in the year, because every year also has its own astrology chart. And so we look at the compatibility of that energy within yourself and with what's going on in the world energetically, and we can see where the challenges lie and where we need to put our focus, what kind of work we need to do, where maybe some year there's more favorable energy to make big statements and make changes in your life, or other years, maybe we just need to do more research. Maybe we need to not make so many changes within ourselves because the opportunities aren't there for us. So when you first realize and see more about who you are as a person, then we can look into your house and to see how we can support you to make the changes that you would like in your house or in your life, and or maybe in terms of your career, where your focus should be with the work that you're doing, or you're better suited to find a relationship this year, or maybe it's better to wait till next year. These are the kinds of things that we will discover and work with our clients to help them make the transformations that they would like to make in their life.
Okay, so this is very interesting, because I expect that once one is in alignment with oneself, this also reflects in their space as well. So
yes,
ways.
There are challenges in every space. There is absolutely no perfect space, because challenge is what makes us grow. And so this is a fact of life. And the more we can embrace where we are uncomfortable or where there's difficulties, and we have better understanding about it, what the lesson is there to teach us, it helps us to have more acceptance about who we are as a person and to grow and evolve. And by understanding about yourself and about your space, it really helps you to really take a step forward.
Very good. So listen, I'm curious now, because this has been a very interesting so far, but I just wanted to ask, can you give us some example of changes which you have seen? I mean, significant, both for the space-wise and for person-wise, because I think this is a very interesting combination.
Okay, so I have a client, actually she's an architect, and she came to me quite a number of years ago, and she didn't have a partner, and she really wanted a relationship. And so I came into her home and could see that there was, we needed to make some serious changes with the house, because there were blockages on how the energy was flowing in the house. In particular, we needed to replace how the bedroom was set up, where the bed is positioned, because we'd like the bed to be in a position that's in alignment with us energetically. And based on the year you're born, there are preferred directions to sleep, preferred locations in the house to sleep. So once we got her room set up, interestingly enough, she went to a seminar a week later and she met a guy. She was kind of shocked, I think. And 6 months later, I was finding a date for them to get married. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes, yes. So it was fascinating. And then, of course, she needed to make room for him. So then it became the journey of, okay, remodeling their house and expanding it. And so I was working with her to see what kind of changes that we're going to make that would facilitate, like where we're going to put the kitchen, what orientation we were going to have certain entrances, where we created certain openings into the house so that fed in particular energy. And as time goes on, of course, they have a wonderful relationship. Her business began to grow. And so just last year, I actually helped her to find a new location for her business. And maybe it was too good, because actually she got so much work. She had to hire like 3 new employees, and was working very hard, but she was very pleased. And so you can see these are the kinds of things that really one thing leads to another. It's like you begin to have wins in your life. It's like instead of life feeling like the wind is in your favor, instead of everything is so arduous, things to happen with ease. It doesn't mean that you don't continue to have challenges in your life, because we're humans. That is why we're here, to learn and to grow. But it gives you the courage to face your fears, to see the opportunities that will be coming your way, and how do I take advantage of them?
So listen, just one little practical question of this story, which is very inspiring, I must say. One would think that, okay, I'm going to do a Feng Shui, then everything positive is going to happen, everything's going to fall into place, but quite rightly, you added at the end, yes, but you've still got to face the day-to-day stuff. So yeah, but how about the position of the bed is what I'm a bit curious about, because there's 2 of us who sleep in the bed. I mean, there's 6 years difference between myself and my husband. So how are we going to do this?
Okay, so you have a different dynamic energetically. So I will, depending on your relationship, I will choose which person is more favored to have the best direction for the bed, or there could be a compatibility, even though you're different years, that you may have mutual directions that the bed is favorable for both of you. And or if the bed doesn't favor one person, then I look at the energy that I bring in from the bedroom door, because we have a flow of energy coming into that room. So which person does that favor? So I try and compensate then for the positioning of the bed for one, the energy coming into the room, maybe to favor one, and the position of the bed to favor the other, so that if everybody gets something from it.
Okay.
And sometimes you need to change bedrooms.
Sometimes you need to change bedrooms. So it comes to my mind, for example, what happens if someone lives in a small apartment?
There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't matter the size of your space. It's just a matter of how your space is arranged. You know, if you have too much furniture in a small apartment, of course, then we have a problem, because the energy then stagnates. We need to get rid of some things to open up the energy. Versus sometimes people live in such large homes, it's hard to get the whole house energized, because you need a lot of flow of energy. So a lot of times when people have large homes, it's good to have pets that run around the house and move the energy around, have people in your life that come and visit. You know, you want to bring that energy into your door. So every time someone walks through your front door, they're bringing in energy and bringing in chi.
Okay. So it's good to have a lot of people at home.
If you have a very large house, help circulate the energy.
Okay. So, and can you give us another example? Because this one I really sort of was very interesting, but it's almost too good to be true. I mean, is it possible that everything can go well from one day to the other?
Not always, because sometimes the things that I see that you need to change in your house are the things that people are most resistant to change, because there's an aspect of themselves that's not ready to change, that is in relationship to that. So therefore it can bring up some issues. And of course I help people to work through that, because you might be holding on to clutter, let's say, for example, in the southeast location, and the southeast location is like your home location. It's like you were, based on the year you're born, we have preferred locations. And so it may be about relationship issues in that particular location, and or behaviors that you have about yourself that you're not willing to face. And so it'll come up. And so therefore I help people to make those kinds of acceptance about themselves, or changes within themselves, so that they're more apt to make those kinds of changes. And sometimes people resist and they're not willing. So that's, it's up to the individual. I can only advise, and be there as a support, but it's really up to the person to determine whether they're ready to embrace what potentially is a bigger world for them.
Listen, I wanted to ask, this is a curiosity of mine, because when I think of Feng Shui, I always think of water. I don't know if this is something which I heard a long time ago, but I just wanted to ask you, how important and what is the influence of water in Feng Shui practice?
I think it's one of the most powerful things.
Okay.
Because water is a movement of energy, and water prefers particular locations during particular times. And so when water is not positioned in the correct location, it can have very adverse effects for the family members. For example, one of the locations that I really do not like to see water is in the Northwest, because the Northwest represents the head of the family. And the head of the family in the Northwest is the metal element. And so we need to support the head of the family to be home, to be caring, to go out in the world and make money for the family so that they, can prosper. And water is, of course, the water element, and water actually reduces the energy of the metal. So it actually impacts the metal energy, and it makes them less less capable of doing what they need to do. So it really infringes energetically on that space. And so therefore I always, if we have water in the Northwest, it's difficult to remediate it. And so I may make other kinds of suggestions as far as moving, depending on how the family is doing, because not everybody is completely affected by their space. Some people just have an incredible destiny, and they can rise above some of the situations in their life. And then other people, it can be disastrous. Like I had a client who had bought this house, and then he had me come and look at it. And he bought, the pool was probably one of the largest swimming pools I've ever seen. And it was completely covering the Northwest. And then 3 months later, he actually, his world started imploding, and he had to leave that house because he could no longer afford it.
Oh,
so water strategically, it needs to be used strategically, because it also can activate energy to bring opportunities to you.
Okay, so another question I wanted to ask you is, but how do you do your consultations? Because in that, let me reformulate the question. Since there's so much behind this, I can imagine that you would have to do, you'd have to get to know these people, your clients, a bit before you actually start discussing how Feng Shui can help them change. So how
obviously we have a preliminary discussion to see what their objectives are, what would they like to achieve from this. And then I look at their birth charts, and that gives me a lot of understanding about who they are. And then when I come into their environment, their home, their business, I can see where the difficulties are for them. And so I do an assessment of their space. And of course, I then go offsite and I actually write up a report that's very thorough, and it gives them very specific things to do and when to do them, and help them then to understand all of those different changes they need to make. And then we go from there and see how life progresses,
So there is a physical component in this.
Very much so. I spend a lot of time on the computer.
No, I mean physical also in that you've got to actually go and see the house and do the
ideally I do, sometimes because of the situation in the world, that hasn't always been possible lately, but I also require a floor plan of people's homes. So I have that to a very accurate floor plan, so that I can determine, put my roadmap on the floor plan to see where everything is falling into place. And thanks to technology, there's ways I can identify where it's located and where it's oriented.
Yes, perfect, excellent. So if I were to say, oh gosh, I want to do something, tomorrow I'm going to get up tomorrow morning and I'm going to start moving my things around and try and implement a few tips of Feng Shui here and there. What would you suggest to me? I mean, without having to go through the whole study.
Well, if you would like to just to experience a change in your life, sometimes it's just moving a few pieces of furniture around that's going to shift the energy. It's not necessarily something complicated that you need to do. One of the things really is important is at your entrance to make sure it's not buried behind bushes and there's not clutter there, is to open up so that space, so the energy can flow into your space. So those are some very simple things that you can do to just change how you feel, observe how you're feeling and see where that shifts your mind.
Well, to tell you the truth, we changed the house about a year ago. And just this morning, I mean, in the other house, we lived for 15 years. Just this morning, my husband was telling me, because it's slightly smaller where we are, was saying, well, it's slightly smaller, but I feel better in this house, So obviously quite a lot here. We'll have to look at it in detail.
Well, size doesn't matter, see?
Size doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter.
No.
So, Pamela, well, thank you for your time. But first, before we close up, I would like you to tell us a bit more about, exactly what you do and what, our listeners how they can connect to you if they would like to know a bit more.
Okay, so what's most important, I think, is that you go to my website, languageofspace.com, and sign up to be on my newsletter, because I send to people every month tips about what's happening energetically during that month in the world, in your space, which characteristics of personalities, maybe we need to pay more attention to, tips of where to stay in your home for that month, which locations have the most vibrant energy. So I give all kinds of information on my newsletter. And I also, if you want to know more about Feng Shui, I do have complimentary kind of discovery sessions with people. And as of for this event, I would like to make a free offer, and that is based on the year you're born, you have an archetypal energy. And so if you go to my website, and I think you'll have a link that will show up eventually, and send me your birth date in a message, and I will send you back a report that will give you some idea about the traits about who you are as a person.
Oh, perfect. Well, I think I'll definitely do that one.
Good.
Okay, then. Well, thanks a lot, Pamela. That was a very interesting and relaxing conversation with you. And speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing the release of your show, and hopefully many people will enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.